2, 1.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Texans for Productivity May 4th community meeting. Appreciate everybody joining. I know we have quite a few users, about 118 people who are attending so far. And this month we are using live events. So we have basically a capacity of 10,000 attendees. And so we shouldn't run into the challenge we had with our last training session where we capped out. So appreciate, again, everybody joining. For this month, there is Q&A. So if you look on your screen, you can open up the Q&A, and this is a moderated Q&A. So what that means is that you're able to ask questions, and we can answer those questions for you, our moderators. We have Justin Rohn and Grant Oliasani as moderators who are going to be working with us. And then if you have a question that we want to publish to the whole community, then they will be able to publish that, and then you'll see it in the public side. And so if you're having a technical challenge, you can post that there, or if you just have a question that is general about the content that we have, then you can post it and we'll push it over to the public side. So live events does have the ability to have captioning, automated captioning. And so as I'm speaking, my words are being translated into text. And so if you go down into the lower right-hand corner and open up the captioning, then you will see this translated into, it'll be in English. And then if your system default languages, I set it for Spanish, French, and I picked a few other languages. I did not pick Klingon. And so you can pick which language that you're, based on your system defaults, that it'll be translated into. And so again, welcome everybody. Let me go ahead and get into our sign in. So if you don't mind, we did not do event registration this time, so we don't know who all registered for the event. But if you wouldn't mind signing in, that'll give us a little bit of a record of who attended. And all you need to do to use this is take out your smartphone and turn on your camera and point it at the QR code on the screen right here. And that QR code will pop open a message and say open forms, and it'll take you right to a form that you can fill out. And it's just name, first name, last name, email address. And then we're asking for a little bit of feedback on the community. We would love your thoughts on how we're doing. Also, if you have any ideas about what you'd like to see, we'd welcome you to post those into the comment section. If the QR code is not working, then you can type in this https://live-event-eval, and that will take you to that same form to sign in. And I'll show this at the end as well if you don't get a chance to get to it right now. But again, we do appreciate your feedback very much. We're always trying to improve this and make it better. So today we have a pretty packed agenda. We're going to start with a welcome and an update on Teams. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the new capabilities that have been rolled out over the last few months with Microsoft Teams. And then we're also going to go to a page, which is a roadmap page that I want to show you all, which talks about features that are going to be coming down the road. And so there are quite a few features that are on the cusp of being released. And so I want to talk a little bit about those and share some of the excitement about what you're going to be getting. If you are one of the few agencies that's in a commercial tenant, then some of these capabilities have already gone live in your tenants. And then some of them are going to be coming. And then if you are in the GCC or in a government tenant, then those will typically be delayed by a month to 3 months. Most of these features are not as long of a delay between commercial cloud and GCC. So we should be getting those to you a little more quickly on some of these features. So we're also going to talk about some sponsored training that we have coming up. Really excited about the training that we have and sharing that with you. And then last, from 3:30 to 4:30, we have a guest presenter, Jace Maroney, and Jace is going to be talking about Teams as a platform to enable work. I had a longer title, but it wouldn't fit right there. And so I just shortened it up a little bit to really enable work and a little bit more efficiency. So let me just check in with my team. Everything's still working fine, Grant and Justin?
Yep.
Yes, sir. We're good to go.
All right. Excellent. I first want to say just welcome to the team. There are so many agencies who have implemented Microsoft Teams over, really the last 5 months, and that is accelerated significantly in the last couple of months as we have been challenged with this remote work scenario. And I am very proud to announce that Texas is now the fastest growing of Microsoft's most strategic accounts with regard to Teams adoption. And so I want to say thank you from us, your team at Microsoft, your virtual team, and there's a lot of us who are here to support you. And on behalf of myself, Michael Kennedy, your customer success manager, we really appreciate all of the work that you have done to enable Teams and to roll this out to your users. We're very excited about the feedback that we're getting from the community and from our agencies who have rolled out Teams. And we know this has not gone without a lot of effort, and it has really assisted the agencies in the remote work effort, and we appreciate it very much. And so we have gone from really about 8,000 Teams users back in January and March, all the way up. We're almost at 40,000 Teams users, and that number is increasing significantly as some of our major agencies roll out Teams and users get trained and start adopting Teams. So very excited about the growth. We look forward to this community supporting all of you in that growth, and really helping to take Teams to the next level, because it truly is more than just a Skype replacement. It's not Skype 2.0. It truly is a platform, and we're going to talk a lot more about that a little bit later in our session. So there have been some features that have come out over really the last 3-4 months. And so I've visited with some of you about some of these features. So private channels is one that came out where when you have a team site and you have different channels, perhaps maybe this is a team site for human resources, but human resources wants to, inside of that team site, have a channel that is just for the members of the human resources team. Then they can create a private channel inside of that team site where only certain members are able to see the content in that channel. So it works really well when you want to have top level channels for different departments or organizations inside of your agency, and but you do want to secure certain parts of that communication. We also have one-day retention. So Teams does have the ability to assign retention schedules to the chats and the content. You also have the ability to set retention schedules or expiration schedules on the teams themselves. It's a different topic. But one-day retention means that when this is configured, it's 1 day plus a couple of days, which is a little bit misleading, but I want you guys to understand, and we can go into more detail in this if you want to have a one-on-one session regarding retention. The retention engine behind the scenes comes along, and it has a service level of agreement of 2 days. And so if you set 1 day retention, then it's really N plus 2. So if it's 1 day retention or 30-day retention, then those will be cleaned up after that amount of time. And so there is more granularity to retention schedules and permissions that can be set. And we do have some really good offerings from our unified support team, also referred to as Premier. And so if you talk to your technical account manager, then there is some governance workshops and retention schedules, and the file management and chat management is part of those workshops, and can really take a deep dive on those capabilities for you if that's an area of interest. The last one here as a major update is what are called third-party applications. And we're going to be talking quite a bit more about third-party applications with Jace and his session this afternoon. But what it really boils down to is, and just the basics is, with Teams, you have the Teams application, and then Teams can be extended with first-party applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. First party really refers to these are Microsoft-owned and created applications. So, as I said, PowerPoint, Excel, Word, OneNote, and then you have what are called third-party applications, and those are applications that can be integrated into Teams, like Adobe Sign, Trello for project management, and there's a whole slew of them that are available. And those applications Some of them need a separate subscription. So if you're using them already in your business, then they can be incorporated into Teams so that you can access them right inside of the screen of Teams so that you don't have to leave the context of what you're doing in order to get to this other application that might have bearing on what you're working on inside of Teams. And so there's a really nice integration story that's there. But just be aware that sometimes those third-party applications are blocked and need to be enabled on a case-by-case basis based on business requirements, because they do potentially have cost associated with them, and we want to make sure that that we are just enabling the ones that are enterprise IT approved and are going to be have a budget to pay for them. So there is a roadmap page, and I put the link here, and I will send out the slides afterward. And we're going to be recording today's session, and the recording will be made available on our YouTube channel. And so I'll make sure and post the YouTube channel at the end here, and we'll put it in the chat. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and click on this roadmap page. Actually, I'm just going to shift here and let me share out my browser. Go. Okay, Grant, are you all seeing my browser in the share window?
Yes, we are.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So this roadmap page really goes through what is new in Microsoft Teams. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance to all of our government customers and all of our GCC customers. So the when features are released in the commercial sector, they have to go through an approval and certification process in order to be released in GCC, the Government Community Cloud, which is the government version of Office 365. And so there is a delay. And so as these features roll out, you will see them come available, and then they'll need to be enabled by your enterprise IT group after they confirm that they are not going to interfere with anything else that's working inside your environment. So a often requested capability is more simultaneous video. And so we don't have a goal of having as many as you might have experienced on a Zoom call, Zoom happy hour, or you might be using Zoom in your business meetings. We think having 50 people on the screen at the same time would be a little distracting. And so we are planning on having, this is what we call 3x3, so a total of 9 simultaneous videos. And then you can pin the videos to the screen so you can see certain presenters who are delivering most of the content, and you're going to have some controls and ability to shift whether you're looking at the PowerPoint or people's videos. There is also a raise hand feature, and so this is going to be rolling out soon in the commercial cloud and will be coming to the government cloud as well. So if you're in a Teams meeting, now again, this is a live event, so you don't have the ability to raise your hand here, but you can enter information into the chat or a question. But if you're in a Teams meeting and you have something you want to say, then you'll have the ability to click a raise your hand feature, and the presenters get notified that someone has their hand up. And like you can see right here, there's a little hand right there in the corner, and these two gentlemen have their hand up, and right over here, Rita has her hand up. So if you're wanting to take a quick poll, you can do that, or someone can raise their hand to say, I have something I'd like to say. Now, some of you are familiar with the background effects, and so where you have the ability to change your background and put something else there. And so background effects are coming. You may already have this feature, and so that is a blur effect where it just blurs what's behind you. So as the kids and wife or husband and dog and everything else go running behind you as you're in an important meeting, they would just be blurred out. There is also a feature called these other backgrounds. And so it's pictures that look like an office or a beach or whatever scene. And down the road, there's a feature that'll be coming where you'll actually be able to upload your own custom background. And so if you have a favorite picture, a favorite place that you like to go, then you can upload that. Just remember that you are sharing this with everybody that is on the video or on the meeting, and that it might be recorded. So please be mindful of what you put as your background, because other people are going to see that. We're also going to be releasing background blur for iOS. That's harder to say than I thought it would be. And that is where you have a background blur on the iPhone when you're using the Teams client on your iPhone. And that will be available coming soon as well. And then live captioning in iOS and Android. So that is what we're experiencing here. Whereas I'm talking, it is translating my voice into text and putting on the screen. And then we've increased the limits for the size of meetings. So live event, this has already occurred. We have gone from 10,000 to 20,000 attendees. If you have a meeting that you suspect that more than 20,000 people are going to attend, then let us know and we can actually increase that even higher. And there are some other technologies that can be used to increase that. There are the ability to have meetings in Stream, which is basically YouTube for the enterprise, where it has the ability to have videos and record videos and create channels for videos. And then there's also in the commercial sector, Yammer, and that has the ability to have hosted meetings as well, up to 100,000 people. And so a lot of work has been done there. We also have the ability to share system audio in Teams live events. So if you're sharing a video, you include system audio. So when that video plays, the people on the other end are hearing what your the audio from your video itself, as well as if you're speaking over it like I'm speaking right now, then they would be hearing that as well. Based on the kind of some security requirements. So when you end a meeting, you guys may have experienced before where you forget to close down a Teams meeting and it's still running in the background. And if you are recording that meeting, then it could record a lot of nothing for quite some time. And so you'll have the ability to end the meeting. And so that will officially shut down the meeting itself and will shut down everybody else. And then one-on-one call recording. So this will be the ability to record one-on-one calls in Teams. So if you're having a meeting with your employee or something along that line, then you'd have that capability. There's also some new capabilities for dashboards that'll be coming. There are some really nice usage dashboards that are part of the O365 Administrative Console. These are taking those to the next level. And so you can use Power BI for these dashboards. And so again, some additional features that are coming there. So a lot coming to Teams, and so a lot of things that we'll be able to share with you guys and look forward to y'all having access to. Okay, let me share my desktop back again with you for the PowerPoint. Grant or Justin, are there any questions in the chat window that we need to address now?
Quite a few, but I believe we're getting them to the QA window.
Okay, excellent. Over and take a look at that. Are y'all answering them as we go, or is there anything that I should address now?
We're pretty much answering them as we go.
Okay, thanks, Justin. Appreciate that very much. Okay, so with regard to training, I think training is the most important part of getting your end users to adopt Teams and really understand the capabilities and features in Teams. And so as we've had these community calls going all the way back to our first call in February, we've really highlighted training, and new resources have come out as we've gone along, and I've attempted to share those with a lot of you through this community forum. And so there is the first thing that I would point to, and there's when you get this deck, there's a link to this. If you go to teamsdemo.office.com, there's this Microsoft Teams interactive demo. It takes about 10 minutes, and it truly is interactive, where it asks you to open up spreadsheets and make changes. And so it really goes through all of the features, the top level features in Teams, in about 10 minutes. There is also, down in your lower left-hand corner, if you click Help and click Training, it will bring up a list. If you're in government, it'll bring up a list of articles of how do you start a meeting, how do you record a meeting. And so there's a lot of training that's available that is right there inside of Teams, inside of your Teams client. If you're in the commercial cloud, then that will actually link to videos that are available on those subjects. So those same videos that are available in the Teams training in the client are also available in what we call the Learning Pathways site. So this is a website that can be deployed inside of your organization, inside your SharePoint. And so we have several agencies that are using this. I know Michael Moore with Health and Human Services deployed this early on. And there was an update in April with a lot of additional content for remote work and really helping us deal with the challenges of remote working. And a lot of us had to go home pretty quickly, and we weren't potentially set up at home for remote work. And so some good training that's available there. And right here inside this Microsoft 365 training, if you click on that, your administrators will be able to set up training on Teams and Outlook and Excel and all kinds of great training that's available on all of the different Office products that you guys already subscribe to. The link to information about this Learning Pathways site is here, and they've made quite a few improvements in how you download it and deploy it into your SharePoint Online environment. And so if you're one of the early on people who did that, it required quite a bit more SharePoint admin skills, but it has gotten somewhat easier to deploy inside your environment. So another good resource that's included with your subscription. Many of you have taken advantage of the customer success training, CST, that is provided through the Microsoft Store. We used to provide those on premises, at your location, your agency location, and we would send a real person, in real life, to come and meet with you. Obviously, we're not doing that anymore, but the Microsoft Store virtualized that training, and they're just doing a fantastic job. And so the training group over at Texas Parks and Wildlife, Health and Human Services, I know that they have taken advantage of that and have scheduled multiple trainings. City of Austin has scheduled some very frequent repetitive training. And so I would invite you, if you're interested in this training, to reach out to me, and the Microsoft Store CST team can get these scheduled for you, and they'll deliver them. Yeah, they will visit with you ahead of time. So if there are things that are custom about the way that you are using Teams, then they can help address that and understand whether you're in commercial cloud or government cloud and which features you have available to you. I've got nothing but really positive feedback on this training. So this is something that I've showcased several times. This is not a Microsoft produced video, but it's really cleverly done, well done. And it's 5 embarrassing mistakes while using Microsoft Teams. Highly recommend it. I have committed most of those mistakes before I watch this video, and it helps me be a better Teams user. So let me go past that. I also just found out about Adopt and Embrace Microsoft Teams. So this is a book that was released recently. I just got 3 copies, so I'm hoping someday that I'll actually be able to see my customers again and can share some of these copies with customers. And so if you're interested in ordering this, it is available on Amazon. I don't know if it's available on others. I order my books through Amazon, and you can get it on Kindle, or you can get it in paperback. And so it's about 300 pages and goes through really a deep dive on how do you roll out Teams, and how do you coordinate Teams, and how do you get it stood up, and then what's more of that business value that's not apparent just right there on the surface of Teams. So on to the next topic of training is something that I'm very excited to announce. We've been working very closely with the DIR, and one of our training partners, a company called Vitalist, who was training in Teams Adoption, Office 365 Adoption Partner of the Year last year. And so we have created a series of trainings that are going to be available. There's going to be no cost to you as agencies to attend. They're going to be starting on June 1st and going through June 15th. And so we're going to have 3 different classes available. There's going to be Getting Started with Microsoft Teams. This is kind of Teams 101. Then Teams for Intermediate Users. So taking those skills to the next level, and then creating and managing teams. So if in your organization you have the ability to create a team site, this can really teach you some of the best practices of creating the team, using channels, using the Files tab, adding different applications into that, and really making best use of the capabilities of Teams. And so there will be multiple sessions of each of these, 4 or 5 sessions of each of these. They will be delivered via live events like this. So unfortunately, you won't be able to ask questions as you go along, and we could have quite a few attendees, so that the trainer is the only person in the meeting. So we won't have somebody moderating the chat in those trainings. So apologies for that, but it's going to be very good content. And so I do feel like you'll be able to learn quite a bit in these. And so if you're already a big user of Teams, you might want to jump right to Teams for intermediate users. But just go out to this URL. It's https://vitalist.eventbuilder.com/state of Texas. And you'll see the whole selection of courses. You can already sign up now. And then the courses will actually start on June 1st. The last course will be on June 15th. We also have this same program. We're putting together some sponsored training for Teams admins. And so this is going to be coming soon, the link to sign up for the training. So we'll be sending that out. And this is really just for agency IT staff. So if you're a Teams enthusiast, I would recommend that, or a Teams user, I'd recommend that you attend the other trainings. But this is really focused on the IT admins. This is going to be all about the Office 365 Administrative Console and which settings are available and what they do and what they mean for the back-end administration of Teams. So it's going to be a 90-minute class. I've looked at the agenda. It is action-packed. It's 1 minute on this, 2 minutes on this, and so it is going to go very quickly through a lot of content. And so again, would welcome you to sign up for those classes. We'll be sending out the link to register soon. So that brings me to our the next section. And so we're going to be talking about Teams as a platform. And Jace Moreno is one of my coworkers and somebody that I really look up to. He has been leading this Microsoft Teams Superheroes series of videos that are available on YouTube. He's a frequent speaker at internal and external conferences. He's a community host and really understands Teams as a platform and works with a lot of customers who have leveraged this to really change the way that they do business and the way that they work and really streamline their business processes. And so without further ado, let me introduce Jace. Thank you so much for joining our Texas Teams community, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, everybody. All right. You guys are seeing me live on the slides there, right?
Yep, we're taking care of it.
There we go. Looks like we're up and good, yeah?
Looking good.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for that intro too. Very flattering coming from you guys and the legends. It was awesome watching this call. Frankly, I learned a little bit here watching this too. This is great content. But again, Jace Moreno, I've been looking after Teams platform for Microsoft for the past 2 years, and I'll explain what that means here in a bit. But previously in product marketing, and then for the last 10 months as the global lead for our customer success group. And please indulge me here for a second. I know it's a bit cliche to start with this slide, but I got to say, I love what Satya, our CEO, said in his book about 2 years ago, and I think it's so relevant today and what we're doing around Teams platform. But this has been the most fun job that I've had in the 7 years I've been at Microsoft, because we truly are working with customers to deliver real innovation. And we're doing it leveraging your existing investments, not necessarily creating a bunch of new solutions, although that does happen quite a bit. But it's about leveraging these investments you've made in solutions that weren't necessarily created by Microsoft either. And so it's been real fun. Satya said joining here to make others cool. I think it's really, making people superheroes is the way I've been framing it and what we've been sharing in these videos, and giving people superpowers at work to frankly leverage the technology the way we should. That's at our fingertips every day. And that said, while we do have amazing fun solutions we'll talk about today, the solutions to challenges, regardless of how complex they are, sometimes are a lot more simple than I think we might think. And I got to say, one of the coolest guys that we met so far, we were doing this customer workshop event with our folks in Denver, and we were going through Power Platform, which I'll touch on here in a bit if no one's familiar with, or excuse me, if anybody's not familiar with it. But we were going through Power Platform, and this gentleman popped off the call. He was very excited, and he said, I think you guys can help me with this challenge that we're going through as my organization. And I think Power Platform and Flow can help me do this. And so he started explaining the scenario. And what he said is that what he does every month is he sends 8 different emails to 8 different direct reports with an attached Excel file. And Each one of those 8 people then send him back an email with a new version, and they all have a version number that they have to put by their names. And then what he does is he amalgamates all 8 of those files together and sends one out to all of his team and his leadership team. And so he goes, I think we could automate this process and use Flow. And we're all smiling at each other on the video call. And we go, man, we walked him through the process of sharing his Excel file in a chat and in a channel with people, and told him about co-authoring and explained, the value of using this file in the cloud, et cetera. And so he's really excited, and he jumps off the call for a second or on mute, and he comes back on 20 minutes later, and he goes, guys, I got to tell you, this is some David Blaine stuff. And if anybody here isn't familiar with David Blaine, he's a very famous celebrity magician. And he goes, this is some David Blaine stuff. I just watched 4 people edit this document at the same time inside of Teams. Thank you so much. And so again, the really simple example, but amazing how much time it probably saved this gentleman having to coordinate all 8 of these different emails and different requests. And while you all might be experiencing some more complex challenges in your organization, what we often find is the answers to them can be fairly simple. And so we'll walk you through a couple of those examples today. Just for a little bit of background, and for you guys on the call as well from Microsoft side, if there's any questions you want to pop in as we go through, please feel free to interrupt me. But what we're going to cover is a little bit of background on why we're here, a couple of real life scenarios and where to start, and then how we'll support moving forward should you want to deliver some of these scenarios we're going to show in your organization. All right, so quick background on why we're here. Now I was talking to the team, and we hear this from, a lot of organizations around the planet, particularly given everything that's going on around the world, is every pretty much organization on the planet recently went digital, right? And we're all working from home. And now we've got a lot of organizations asking us, what else can we do with Teams? We keep hearing all this stuff around platform and apps and Power Platform, and there's a lot of things out there that we're hearing. How do we take advantage of this? How do we really unleash it and take it to the next level? And so we started doing these workshops all around the world, and these have really increased lately, given everything that's going on with COVID. But the way that I explain it to everybody is that Teams is an opportunity to meet your people where they already are. It's 2020. We know you're not only using Microsoft-built applications to get work done. And so we created this product as a scaffolding, is what engineering calls it, but a way to better bring your existing applications and services and tools you need just to get work done every day together better. And so what does that look like? Okay. Obviously, the core of Teams is communication, chat, meetings, calling, and the core functionality that is probably more important today than ever before. Then collaboration, where you bring together, again, all of your apps and services that you use, whether or not Microsoft built them. And then finally, what we'll spend more time talking about today is doing more here. So how do you start to integrate business processes and connect these different applications and services better so you spend less time switching between them? How do you start to bring your homegrown or line of business applications into Teams? And so think outside of productivity tools for a second, but the tools that you connect into HR, to IT support, to your facilities team, those services that you just need as an employee to get your job done. How do we automate routine tasks? We take these paper-based tasks or these lengthy approval processes and shorten them by automating some of the procedures. And again, going back to what I've been trying to help customers do is give the people superpowers, allow them to get work done easier, and ultimately help them get more done with the tools that they have, right? So what does that look like? Let me pop here to some real life scenarios. I want everyone here to a second to imagine if your workplace apps and information were there every time that you needed them. And you didn't have to switch back and forth between applications to get work done. You didn't have to go search for information. It was just there at your fingertips. And I can tell you honestly, while it's not perfect and it absolutely takes some work, I feel that Teams has pretty much become that place for me. Okay. And again, I spent a lot of time organizing it and curating it to fit my needs and personalizing it, but it's an unbelievable experience when you leverage it beyond just some of the basic workloads. And I want to show you some examples of what that looks like to bring it to life so you can see how applications start to follow you across the Teams canvas, if you will. So the first one is, if anybody is not familiar, and I know this might be fairly new to a lot of folks on this call, given I believe we've got some customers in our government cloud here, is if you go down to the bottom left-hand side of your Teams client application here, and assuming your tenant admin has made some of these available, you should have applications saying right here in what we call the Teams App Store. And so in there, if all of these were enabled for you, there's about 500. Most organizations don't enable all for certain security and compliance reasons, but there's a ton of different applications built by Microsoft and then built by some of the most valuable and popular SaaS providers on the planet. So that's kind of the basics on where you can find these applications. We also have these publicly listed, so I'm happy to share that link if anybody would like it. Now, applications, the way that they render in Teams, or the way you can interact with them, there's a bunch of different capabilities, and most people know about tabs. And if you're not familiar with tabs, and forgive me, I'm going to circle these just to help you see where I am. So I'm in my Teams tab here, and I'm in this channel. And tabs are what we call these links up here. And this is very similar to the concept of if you were in a web browser and you had tabs sitting side by side with your different web pages. Same concept within a Teams channel or a Teams chat. Now, what you're looking at right here is a real screenshot from my Teams experience. That's a planner board that I have embedded in a channel where we plan our superheroes events, the ones that were referenced earlier. So you can see these are, it's really hard to see, but these are events that are confirmed, that we're discussing, ones that we have identified, etc. And we use this as an editorial calendar of sorts between the team who's in this channel. So a really easy way to stay coordinated in all the content and the interviews and events that we have coming up. Now, a lot of applications can also render in various ways. You could have an application show up as a tab, it could also show up as a bot. Right? And a bot's pretty self-explanatory, but what we're seeing a lot of organizations do is very similar to the scenario you're looking at right here. So this bot is called, very cleverly called Appy, but we have Appy pinned in my left-hand rail here in Teams. And I can click on Appy, and what it does is it allows me to search for Teams platform content. And we built this for the customer success group because we knew that a lot of information was stored in a very small group of people. And we wanted to make sure that our customer success managers around the globe had access to all the best Teams platform content. So some of the stuff that you'll see today, a lot of customer facing presentations, key partners to leverage, how, forms to nominate customers into programs in order to get support, etc. And so when you interact with Appy, this is a bot service that's just pulling in information from a SharePoint page. So when you ask it a question, it is quite literally answering that question based on the knowledge base that it has sitting on a SharePoint site that we built. And it's really easy to spin these up. Now, to make it as valuable as Appy is, it definitely takes some development work, but you can get started very quickly and easily. And I built a bot in Teams with no coding experience and never written a line of code in my life. So I probably wouldn't enable that for a whole tenant, to be fair, but if I can start there, delivering something like Appy is definitely within the realm of possibilities for someone who has some skills. And two last features I'll show you here, which I don't think we talk about enough, but I find them incredibly valuable in the Teams experience. The first one is cards. So what you're looking at right here, again, real example from my Teams experience, but the card is this component right here. And we set up a series of what we call road shows, but they're events and workshops that we do with customers. And we set up registration pages for our local customer success managers who help us put these on. And what happens is they go fill out a form, which I actually have embedded as a tab inside of this channel for them to find it easily. And when they fill out that form, that triggers a notification that sends this card into a channel, letting us know that there's been a new request for registration page submitted. And all the information is in there that we need, and then we go take that information and we create a new registration page so customers can sign up and come join us for the event relevant for their local time zone. So again, just a cool way to have this card. One thing to note on the card too is they can all have buttons, and those are allowing me to directly interact with these applications, again, without having to leave that part of the Teams experience that I'm in. And then the last one here is probably my favorite. These are called messaging extensions. Now, most apps have these, by the way, most apps have most of these capabilities, just to clarify. You don't need to enable these. You don't need to necessarily download these. These are how apps follow you across Teams. And what you're looking at here is this is the channel for the customer success managers that I kind of manage, given that it's my part of the business. And what I've done is I've clicked on the YouTube icon down here in the tray. And what it does is it pulls up this messaging extension and it invokes the YouTube application. And so inside of this extension, what I've done is I've started searching for the content that I want to share with the customer success managers. Now, in this case, I wanted to share a video with them of one of the examples that I'm about to show you here in a second. And when I search, I'm searching on YouTube without leaving Teams. So through that search bar. And then when I click on the video that I want to share, what happens is it actually pops in this beautiful card into the experience, and I can share this via chat or channel directly with all the users. So really great way, again, to not have to leave where I am in Teams in order to interact and engage with these other applications. So hopefully that's helpful. Would love for folks to share in the chat if you're leveraging any of these applications in Teams today, and what do you think? We had a call, I did a workshop this morning, and we had quite a few folks talking about leveraging the polling apps like Poly and SurveyMonkey. Heard a lot of great examples. Some folks were using Trello. We had a lot of people using Planner. So if anything has really stood out to you, would love to hear it. And again, I know it's a little fresh for a lot of folks who have been in the government cloud, as we just made these recently available, but would love to hear some feedback from you. Let me pause for a sec. How are we doing on questions, guys, or anything I'm skipping that you want to add in there?
We are working through them, Jace, as they come in, and we're trying to hammer through. We're getting some really good questions, so I think we're all right. But we'll we'll let you know if one comes through. That
let me know for sure.
All right, thanks, Jace.
Absolutely. All right, so popping back to these real life scenarios and where to start. I'm going to show you some examples that are all related to how do we get started, but a lot of organizations have asked us this question, because the sky's the limit with the platform capabilities of Teams, and it becomes very easy to start doing things like I hear quite often, I want to go build a bot for Teams, or I want to go build an app for Teams. And don't get me wrong, I love that, and it's great, and it's amazing that we have such an interest. But I want to share with you, before you get started and thinking about these things for your own organization, a slide that our Teams design team has shared with me. I've sat through a lot of their workshops. So these are the folks that have quite literally created the aesthetic Teams experience, and they work with customers from time to time and help them build their own applications in Teams. And I've switched up the slide a little bit, but they always talk about starting with the scenario. And forgive me, because this may sound fairly basic, but I've been stunned doing workshops how many times I can see folks nodding, because it is easy to get excited and go and start building before you even think about what are you actually trying to solve in the first place. And so these are the questions that we often ask during these workshops when we're thinking about scenarios. Is how are you getting work done today? I think this is probably the most important question, is where is the pain point in the current work process, or where does work slow down throughout the day? And I hate to be negative about it, but I think it's an easy way to just pinpoint it. The alternative is where do you see the opportunities, right? Where do you see the options to tie into your strategic business goals and objectives based on your division and department that you work in? And you can imagine over the course of 3 years, we've seen a lot of common scenarios. These are some of the most common that we've organized by some of our digital transformation initiatives, if you will. And I've even taken it one step further and highlighted some of these in green based on the most common ones that I've been working with customers on. So we'll touch on a few of these today, and I'll share these slides out with everybody. But hopefully this, it is a good foundation to at least get started. And then more importantly, we've got tools to help you get started. So you don't have to build anything from scratch, and again, this isn't even necessarily about building things. Sometimes it's just about connecting them better. And there's two tools that we wanted to run you through today. The first one here is called Power Platform, which we touched on earlier. So I'll give you a brief background, but then what we're going to do is focus on some real scenarios, and I'll actually show you what this looks like. Now, before I get into that, I hate using some of these marketing slides, and no disrespect if anyone here is in marketing, but sometimes they're a little product centric. So I'm going to try to simplify this as much as I can. I'm going to ignore the data component of Power Platform for a second and focus on Power Apps, which are really just simple web and mobile applications that we can build, and Power Automate. Power Automate is all it is a set of triggers and actions. And so you preset the triggers and actions, and once the trigger happens, the Automate performs an action. And so the way this usually shows up, especially in Teams, is the Power App is used as an opportunity to receive data. So a lot of organizations use them as forms, whether it's booking a meeting room or registering somebody who just came into the office or to the organization, car parking sometimes, variety of different reasons, approval requests. And then what happens is when you submit that information into the Power App, the back end of it is Flow or Power Automate, and that determines where that information is being sent. So as an example, let's say that you want to have a Power App set up for somebody visiting your office to type in their information, or a constituent, as an example, visiting a local office, to type in their information, and when they hit submit, the back end of that could notify the relevant person that visitor is there to see them, or however you want to structure the setup there. But really simple set of triggers and actions there. What I thought I'd do, and I was a dummy and I didn't pull this up, so give me 2 seconds here and I'll pull my screen up. But I thought I'd show you a really quick and simple example of exactly what this looks like within Teams, so you can see just a real simple, easy experience example of how we actually have used this inside of Teams. And then what I'll do is I'll show you a really awesome example of how one of your peers has done this at another organization in the UK, actually. So give me 2 secs here, and guys, if I've skipped over any questions too, give me a shout. Or I mean, if you've got any while I'm just pulling this up, it'll take me 10 seconds to get it. All right, I'm gonna pull the screen over for you to see it. There we go. All right, so once it signs in, what you're gonna see is this is a demo that we showed at Inspire, which is our partner conference we run once a year, back when I was in product marketing. And the context of this as it's loading was, as you can imagine, some of Microsoft's events, and this isn't exclusive to us, but they're huge. We've got a lot of people that show up at these events, and it takes quite a bit of time for planning. And so what we decided to do was we wanted to make it easy for our vendors who help us plan these conferences to get access to this information very quickly and easily. I'm getting a little struggling here too on my content, so I'm going to cut my video for a second, but that'll help. You guys still hear me okay, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jace, we can hear you well.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and go back to this. And so anyways, we said we want vendors to be able to get quick approvals for things. So as an example, it may or may not surprise you, but I can't tell you how many questions we used to get around how do you want the seating arrangement inside of each breakout room? How would you like us to organize the catering? All kinds of little simple requests. And what happened was, during Teams, or as we started rolling out Teams, is we would put these requests into a channel, but even there, sometimes they would get lost. And we wanted to be able to specifically notify the people who had the ability to approve these really simple requests that didn't need formal sign off, but were more of just a request for a preference, if you will. And so this isn't the exact Power application that we use, but I'm just going to show you a really simple demo here that explains it and how we were setting it up. And so what happened is we built this really easy to use form that any external vendor, and I want to clarify, these were external folks who were leveraging this application, would be able to pull this up on their mobile phone because we had them in this team, and this was embedded as a tab, as you're seeing up here. And so when this loads here in a sec, you're going to see this. It's a mobile version of the Power application. And again, this is just a really simple form here. I pulled up the wrong tab, sorry. So a really simple form right here. And once I pull up the form, you'll see it's just a couple of boxes. You fill out the information, and then the Power is what happens once the vendor would fill out this information and the flow that was powering the back end of it here. Forgive me, my internet is struggling here. I'll be up in a sec. There we go. All right. So this is the simple Power application. So a vendor would have this on their phone on the expo floor, as an example, and they'd hit the plus sign here, and it'd give them a bunch of different forms that or a bunch of different items they can fill out as part of this form. Really simple stuff, as you can see here. This could be created very quickly and easily. No development experience, no technical experience required, frankly. But the power of this is when you hit this submit right there, two things happen. Is one, this would automatically submit a new file inside of a SharePoint list, which you could find in the Files tab right here. And the other is it would post a flow notification into the channel of our choosing. So in this case, I've already approved this request, but what would happen is you would get this notification in the channel coming from Flow, and there'd be two buttons sitting on this card right here. One would say approve, one would say reject. And you can structure that a bunch of different ways. You could also have a button that says chat with the requester. but it allows anybody who's in this channel, and so you could choose who you'd like to have in these channels and these teams, of course, to approve these requests very simply and then notify the requester themselves. So again, very simple example of how we use this, but really the Power App was just receiving the data and Flow was sending the data to the team right here that we set up. So really easy example again of how to run approval processes. So what I'll do now is I'll show you an example. This is one of my favorites too, of an organization who brought this to life and really delivered on a scenario that I think we all struggle with. And so for a little bit of background here, before I actually show you what happened, is hoping everybody, again, I like to do these imagine ifs so we can put ourselves in their shoes if you'll indulge me for a second. But imagine if you had an approval process at work that takes longer than it should. Now, I can tell you, I for sure have these. I'm guessing that everybody has something like this in their organization. And for background here is Javi, what they were struggling with in their organization, the approval process that took them longer than they wanted to admit, was their new hire pre-boarding process. Now, what I mean by that is this is the process that happened behind the scenes that started when they offered a new contractor a job until they started work on day one, and everything that happened behind the scenes to get that person ready to work on day one. And that means getting them an email address, ordering them a computer or a laptop, getting credentials set up so they can train, etc. And everything that had to happen in order to make that a reality. And I'm going to walk you through their process here in a second, before the solution they created and then after. So you can actually see what the journey looked like for them and what they were experiencing. I've got a video. I'm going to skip the video and send it to you all. It's about a 1-minute video for some background, but I think you'll get a good idea throughout the slides of what I was going to show you. But we have a public facing video, and I've actually recorded what you're about to see on our Superheroes channel, so happy to share that. But I think this is pretty fascinating. So they had this process that took weeks to get done. And with what I'm about to show you, they brought it down to 40 minutes to automate this onboarding, this process, leveraging applications they already had access to right here. It was Microsoft Azure, Power Automate, Power Apps. So what happened? So I'm going to draw this out for you here on this ridiculous diagram that I've put together. But this is, again, what the process looked like before they implemented the solution that I just referenced. Now, what was happening is the Javi HR rep would reach out to a new contractor. They would congratulate that person on getting the job, and they say, we need some information from you to get the hiring process started. And so that person would send back some personal information. We could have a whole security discussion on that. And then the HR rep would input that personal information into multiple Javi-built HR systems, to clarify. So these are not Microsoft systems. And there was more than one system, but just for simplicity, I put one here. And then the rep would send an email out to their peers. They'd put that information into their respective systems, again, for laptop, email address, all the things you need to do with the new hire. They'd ideally get a response back and confirmation, and then they'd send that confirmation back to the original HR rep. So as you can imagine, there's lots of manual data entry going on, same information from multiple people into multiple systems. The best case scenario is this would take 5 to 6 cumulative hours to complete. This came straight from Javi. Unfortunately, what would happen is the process would break down here. Somebody would either miss the email and never enter in the information, or they'd misspell a name, enter an incorrect date of birth or tax ID number. And what would happen is the whole process would have to start over. And so the reality of the situation is that the average time to complete was taking 2 to 3 weeks. Now, here was the problem. This person had a 2-week lead time until they started work from the day they signed their contract. So unfortunately, a lot of new contractors at Javi would start day one and not have enough set up in the system, or even be set up in the system at all, to start work. Sometimes even for the first week, they'd spend that whole week in a boardroom. And so you can imagine that's not a great look. They had a serious turnover challenge as a result. And even worse, these people are more than likely probably starting, and I didn't hear this directly from them, but I'm assuming they started getting worn out. They were reacting all the time and putting out fires, trying to make sure that they were getting those people into the system. And I can imagine that becomes very stressful after a while and after multiple cases over and over and over again. And then you get to that point where you say, I'm too busy to fix the problem. And so you just keep putting Band-Aids on it all over the place. So what happened is Javi said, all right, enough. We're going to hire this gentleman named Thomas, and we're going to have him fix the problem. And so here's how they solved the solution. And it's a very simple but elegant solution, again, to a complex challenge. And so here's how it went, is the process started the same way. HR rep would congratulate the new hire would send back some information. But here's where the process changed. Instead of entering this information into the HR system, what happened now is the Javi rep would enter that information into a new Power App that Thomas and his team created. Now, again, remember, if you're new to Power Apps, remember that little form that I just showed you on my demo that took way too long to start up. That little form, that's all it was. It was a bunch of fields where you can enter in information. And so once that was submitted, the back end of Power App was powered by Flow or Power Automate. And what that simply did is it automated the sending of that new hire's information directly into these systems, bypassing the need for people to manually enter it in. And so what happened now, if you think about this, is there's only one manual data entry, and it's coming right here from the original Javi rep. And this process now, which took 5 to 6 hours best case, average case took 2 to 3 hours, was now being completed in 40 minutes. So incredibly tangible outcome. The beauty of this is this person now can actually start work on day one. These people can now save a bunch of time and start working proactively on new projects. And what I found really interesting is their new project was they said, we want to create one of the best onboarding experiences in the UK. And so that's what they wanted to stay focused on afterwards, which is pretty cool. Now, just to summarize, if that all didn't make sense, again, very simply, the Power App was the interface and the application that received the new hire information, and Flow was the backend that sent that new hire information into all those respective Javi HR systems. Now, I'm kind of leading you with this question, but what if I told you this question this solution was not difficult and required no coding? In fact, Javi was kind enough to send me their runbook. So what you're looking at right here, this is a direct link to a PDF that we have, but Javi shared with us their actual runbook. It's 7 steps in a Flow runbook. It's pretty awesome. They were kind enough to share it if anybody wants to leverage something like this in their organization. Last thing I'll say on this before I take a pause is I think we all struggle with these kinds of scenarios. And what I'm hoping you take away from this, and again, Microsoft included when I say we, is that what this is, it's about improving a very lengthy manual approval process. And I think about my time back when I was at JP Morgan, and I'm sure there are many scenarios that you could all think here around the way that we might engage with our constituents. But when I was at JP Morgan, I would have loved if my bank loan officer could have sent a digital application for a new client to fill out for a mortgage or a loan application. And then they sent back that information. And instead of entering it into each system, sending it to the underwriter and the loan processor and all these different people who have to touch the application itself, is we could have just put that into a Power App that automatically sent it into these systems and could get this person a response in their loan application much more quickly. So let me pause there for a sec. I want to make sure I breathe for a moment and give any questions an opportunity to surface if we have them. How are we doing, guys? All good?
Yes, sir. We're all good.
Awesome. Okay. Second thing we're going to talk about on the tools that Microsoft has put out there at your disposal to get started are application templates. Now, what these are, I love these. We've had a ton of organizations leverage these around the world already. But our team's engineering group over the course of 3 years saw a lot of common scenarios coming up with organizations and how they were delivering these innovative solutions in teams. And we have a program called Slate where we actually work with customers to help them design and build some of these solutions that are either built from scratch or connect into existing scenarios. And after doing quite a few of these, I said, why don't we make these open source templates so other organizations can take advantage? And so what these are, again, very simply, is these are production ready. So that doesn't mean anything to some folks on the call. That essentially means it's an application that's ready to download and use today in Teams if you want to. But these are also open source, which means you can personalize them. You can name them, you can give them your own name, you can give them your own personality. There's a ton of things you can do because they're open source and community driven on GitHub. And I believe I need to go check the number. I know we have at least 12 right now, but there's a bunch of them sitting up on GitHub, and you can access them and all the details directly from that link, which I'll have on each one of these slides. But each template contains detailed instructions for deploying and installing. And again, source code's available so you can alter it to meet your specific needs. I'm going to cover 2 of these real quick. The first one is called FAQ Plus Bot. Actually, sorry, that's the second one. First one will be Company Communicator that we'll touch on, and then I'll cover FAQ Plus Bot. And I'll show you exactly what these look like and give you a little demo here. So the first app template, Company Communicator, what this is it's a way to keep everybody really informed by sending targeted communications directly to users in Teams. And the way this works is you can send these adaptive cards, we've talked about these a couple times today, but directly to users via Teams chat or via Teams channels. So you can reach your users directly in Teams, and the admins of this application, which are just the people who have set it up and who have the admin controls for it, can choose how they want to reach out to users. So you can send this to your entire company, you can send it to subgroups, you can send it to individuals, all kinds of ways that you can structure these conversations. But you can do this at scale, right? As you can see here, you can manage pipelines that reach 200,000 users in less than an hour. And I'll show you an example of an organization who did this. What you're looking at is actually a screenshot from a demo that we used inside of Microsoft where we were testing this out. So that's the card that we were talking about there that you can customize. You can add your own images and links and buttons, etc. Now, how are we seeing organizations use Company Communicator? Quite a few of them are actually using it here for Teams adoption. So imagine if you jumped into Teams and you received something like that on day one, which is a personal communication sitting right there in your chat tab that welcomes you to Teams, tells you what Teams is all about, and then it's got a button there that lets you learn how to do more, maybe get access to videos that already exist, or point you to a training page or whatever it looks like. So great experience to have on day one. Now, you can also imagine that over the past 6 weeks, a lot of organizations have used this for company announcements, right? Particularly around COVID and all the things that are happening with policies and work from home and et cetera. So a lot of organizations sort of pivoted their focus on the Company Communicator and leveraged it to reach everybody in Teams directly. And again, chats, channels, however you want to structure that. We've seen a lot of organizations use this to modernize their learning and almost use it as a lightweight learning management system. So as an example, here's a notification for training that's coming due or compliance training that you have to cover every year. And then I already touched on that for crisis and emergency communication. I'll show you what this looks like in a second. Second app template is called FAQ Plus Bot. Now, I love this one because it's so easy to get started. Now, again, I don't want to oversell bots because they do take some work to make a very valuable bot, but getting started with this is incredibly easy. We have seen a lot of organizations use this to reduce internal support costs by allowing users to self-serve. And I'm going to show you how we did this inside of Microsoft, and I referenced it earlier. And so what FAQ Plus does is you just need to point it to a knowledge base. And a knowledge base can be something as simple as an Excel file with questions and answers, a Word document with questions and answers, or a SharePoint webpage, and everything in between. There's a bunch of different knowledge bases that we'll take. But what it's doing at that point is when you're asking the bot questions, it's just answering based on the knowledge base that you pointed it to. And so again, we see a lot of organizations leverage this for Teams adoption, new product rollouts, and it's got a lightweight help desk. And so let me show you what this looks like here. I'm going to pull up actually a application that we use inside of Microsoft here. This one's called Appy. And for a little background as I'm pulling it up, I love Appy. So I went and talked to Teams engineering, and what I told them is I go, look, there's only, for a while there at least, there was only a few of us that I think really understood all of the end-to-end capabilities of the Teams platform. And there's so many great resources out there, and we wanted to make it easy for all of our customer success managers around the globe to get access to those resources. And so what they did is they helped us put together a resource library, which, because my PC is going pretty slow, I'm not gonna point to it, but the resource library is right here in this tab that I'm hovering my cursor over. All it is a SharePoint page. We brought together all of our most important content into a SharePoint page, and that's the back end of this application and the knowledge base that it's pulling from. But check this out. We actually combined Company Communicator and FAQ Plus Bot into one experience here. And so I'll show you, these are some searches that I've done, but what I want to show you is an announcement that we sent not too long ago. So this was our marketing team launched some new details about key remote applications to leverage inside of Teams. Sorry, let me get this out of the way. Real annoying. Sorry about that. I'm using two screens. But what this is this communication here that our engineering team sent, and they worked with marketing. And when we announced this new page on the best remote applications to leverage in Microsoft Teams, we wanted to announce this to all of our customer success managers and everybody who uses the Appy service. So we directly sent this communication to users. And because I have it pinned over here on my left rail, it popped up for me automatically. For those who didn't have it pinned in the left-hand rail, it showed up in their chat tab. And everybody got the same communication. You got a little bit of a teaser with a beautiful photo. And then you could read the blog by clicking on this, and it takes you to the blog directly. With some really solid developer skills, you could actually open the blog inside of Teams if you wanted. And then it took you to the guide as well, so things that we would be sharing with our customers. And then what I also do is when I need content, referenced this earlier, I can come down here and I can search through the bot, and it searches through that resource and content library. Now, we built this, and this is a default option, but you actually have these menu bars that give you options on what you can search on. So for the first time you interact with a bot, this kind of tells you what you can do. And so I'm going to hit search right here, just so you can see this in action. And let's say that I want to, actually, let's do this. Let's say that I want to show you the hobby story that we just talked about. So I need a customer facing resource. Let's say it's a success story is what I need. And notice that the card is updating within the card itself. So it's not posting a bunch of new cards here. Every time I click on it, it's updating. And then let's say I want an example of custom application development and rollouts. So what's going to pop up are a couple of videos that I can leverage. And there you go. There's the Javi one. So I can scroll through these. It's a really beautiful card there. And I can scroll through these and click on a video. And then what's going to happen is Javi's going to pop up here with the resources that I can leverage. And that's the video that I wanted to show you guys. Here's the blog that we launched when I was in marketing. But right there, I've got access to these resources. And again, all that's doing is leveraging all the content that we put up in this tab. Let's see if it actually loads here. All this tab that we've just amalgamated from all our different resources internally. All right, I'm gonna skip through that because it's probably taking a while, but again, it's a SharePoint tab right there. All right, so back to these slides here. What do you got next for you? Yes, so real example. So Ernst & Young worked with us on, they saw what we just showed you right there, and we did some demos with them, and they said, we want to leverage this for our Microsoft Teams rollout and adoption. And so what they did is they used Company Communicator to send a targeted message to users when they jumped onto Teams. And they sent it to over 200,000 users the first time that they used it, saying, welcome to Teams, giving them a little background. And then there was a button at the bottom of that welcome card. And the button had a deep link on it. And what that deep link allowed it to do, don't worry if you're not familiar with deep links, but the deep link allowed users to click on it. And then what it would do is it would invoke and pull up the actual FAQ bot. So what I just showed you there for users. And EY told their users, they said, this bot is your single point of contact when you have questions about how to use Teams. And if it can't answer those questions, what will happen is the bot will recognize that it didn't answer your question and it will notify an expert. And in this case, an expert was just one of the admins of the application. But EY has used this multiple times, and then they started using Company Communicator when COVID hit to send out notifications and communication to their whole base of users. But multiple times they've used this on a daily basis to reach over 200,000 users. And I think 282,000 users was the max that they reached at one point. So pretty amazing use of this technology. Again, learning how to use Teams in Teams and making the experience easier for the user on day one versus jumping into an open, empty canvas, if you will, where you kind of got to figure it out for yourself. So before I jump into governance, I'll take a quick pause. I want to breathe just in case you guys do have things. I'm assuming you'll stop me if you do.
Hey, Jace, we've been slamming through lots of requests for the run book and different URLs, and we've been putting them into the Q&A. So lots of interest in the content you're publishing, and I know we're going to send out the slides afterward.
Well,
excuse me, but we're also posting into the Q&A.
Love it. Thanks so much, guys. So I recognize that it's really fun to talk about all this stuff, but particularly if you work in an IT department, you might be thinking, yeah, Microsoft, this is great. We love it. But guess what? We've got security and compliance protocol that we need to adhere to. And what if I enable citizen developers in my organization? Who's going to support those solutions if they hit scale? And I get it. And I wanted to share a couple of examples of how some of your peers around the world in commercial organizations have looked at this. And forgive me because these are commercial examples, as have all of this today. But I know it's a little bit early days because a lot of this functionality has just been enabled in our government cloud. But the first option that we see from a lot of organizations around governing this citizen development or this ability for users to build their own solutions with the technology they have, I call it managed innovation. Okay. And I want to share an example from an organization out of Denmark called Novo Nordisk. And I love their approach to this. So what Novo Nordisk did is they brought on an innovation lead within their organization. And this person, his goal was essentially to help them become more digital and digitally transform, you know, for lack of a better term. And as he started working with Microsoft and he saw some of the things that I just showed you and saw what was possible with the investments that they had already made in the licensing construct they were already under, he said, all right, I want to get together with Microsoft and with a partner, and I want to hold, we're going to call it a developer kitchen. Okay, so it's basically a hackathon, but a developer kitchen, and anyone can be a developer in this case. This isn't about full-time developers. Anybody can come and learn how to do this. And the way we're going to disguise this is we're going to share this with users as an opportunity to solve their own challenges at work. We're going to empower them to do that. And so they reached out to a bunch of different business departments, and they invited nominated users from people in their organization, from their managers. And I'm talking everybody from personal assistants to full-time developers and everyone in between. And so they invited these folks, and I believe they had around 65 people show up for their first hackathon across a bunch of different business groups. And it was a 2-day experience. And the reason they got a decent amount of people at this, they were targeting 30, by the way, so it was almost double what they expected. But the reason they got so many people to come is because they ran this under the premise that they were going to run it as a contest. And at the end of day 2, 5 finalists were going to be chosen, and they were going to get to present into the executive board. And the executive board is going to pick a winner on the solution they liked the best, and that winner would get funding. And the partner who was there supporting this whole hackathon would actually implement the solution for Novo Nordisk. And so over the course of 2 days, everybody got some background on Power Platform and Power Automate and some of the capabilities that were available. They kept it mostly to Power Platform in this case, so these 2 applications particularly. And then they started talking to the users, and they did these ideation sessions, they called them, where it's, you know, talk to us about where work slows down every day and those scenario questions that I shared with you earlier. And on day 2, they started coming up with some call them blueprints, so to speak, on how they would solve some of their own business challenges. And then the 5 finalists were chosen. And finally, long story short there, not sure if that was a short version of that story, but anyways, 3 ladies who were personal assistants ended up winning. They were on a team together, and their solution was that they wanted to improve the meeting room booking experience at Novo Nordisk, because they said it was terrible. It was kind of a nightmare to book meeting rooms and conference rooms. And their solution was pretty simple. All they wanted to do was take tablets. They wanted to put them on every room. They wanted to have a Power application sitting on the interface of the tablet, and you could enter in your information. And what it would do is it would connect into the Exchange account, so people could book that meeting room, and it would kick them out after certain intervals of time if the meeting room wasn't being used, and it would allow people to rebook meetings. Very simple scenario, but for them, it was a big game changer. Again, a simple solution to a challenge that was causing people a lot of stress and time. And you can imagine that these ladies, every time they walked by that room, had a huge sense of pride. Surely many people inside of Novo Nordisk thought about them every time they had a much easier meeting room booking experience. But a very simple scenario of how to do this. Now, you probably wonder why I put this under governance. Because the IT organization agreed to do this with the transformation lead, because there was one caveat to the whole thing, and that was that those who were going to build and test their own solutions couldn't do it in the production tenant that Novo Nordisk used. What they were going to do is they were going to sign up all of these citizen developers for their own developer tenant. So Microsoft gives these out for 90 days for free if you're not familiar, and I'd be happy to share that link. So every person had their own sandbox, so to speak, to test and play and start to build some of these scenarios. And that way it didn't cause a bunch of, I was going to say mess. I don't really like that term because I don't think this is a mess, but I get it. You know, a lot of organizations see it as that. And so it didn't have all these separate applications and solutions inside of their production tenant. The only solution that made it into the production tenant was the meeting room booking solution. And so it's a great way to let people test out what's possible, but then only allow certain solutions into your tenant that you want to support and manage, and that also meet your security and compliance requirements. So hopefully that helps on one of those scenarios. A much quicker example, but a second scenario we see a lot of organizations putting together is a center of excellence. And I'm going to share this link out with everybody here in the local team. We're actually going to be running a live event in June where I'm going to be fortunate enough to interview Accenture, Wiley Publishing, and Microsoft, where all 3 organizations are going to talk about how they run their centers of excellence. And now, look, I recognize that none of them are public sector organizations, so forgive me. But I think what they're doing after having discussions is relevant to every organization on the planet. And so they're going to talk about how they've structured these centers of excellence. But the concept behind the center of excellence is where you've got basically your IT department, you've got your end users, and then you've got this organization that sits in between that connects everybody. And that center of excellence is that organization. They're the conduit between IT and the user. And what they do is they often fall under the umbrella and the remit of the IT organization, because you want to be partners with the tenant admins and the IT organization, but they work with the users to solve some of their challenges and help them use their technology better, oftentimes by implementing things like we've seen today and beyond. And so Wisely's got a bunch of cool solutions that they built that they're going to share on this live event that we're going to run, but it's been very successful. We've seen a lot of organizations start building this. You could arguably call the transformation lead at Novo Nordisk a center of excellence to his own right. And then for a couple more examples of how organizations are doing this, so we just touched on center of excellence. We touched on the separate tenant sandbox. We do see a lot of organizations out there leveraging their Microsoft Premier Services contract as one option. Sorry, I circled the wrong one. I meant to circle this one. So Premier Services. A lot of organizations also are looking to our Microsoft Partner Network to leverage some of our partners to operate as almost a lightweight center of excellence on their behalf. And obviously there's many conversations that would happen as a part of that. And then if anybody wasn't familiar, though I would assume many of you are, given our government clouds, we also have Teams application policies. And so what you can do is you can only give subsets of users access to certain applications within Teams should you want to go down that route. And as an example, let's say that you've got 10 people and you want to allow these citizen developers, so to speak, forgive me for using that term, I know it's almost very trendy now, but you want to allow these 10 people to maybe have a play with Power Apps and Power Automate and maybe a couple other applications. Or you've got your HR department who uses Workday, which we just enabled in Teams, and you want to allow them to have access to Workday, but you want to shut it down for the rest of the organization. You can do that today. Now, if anybody's intimately familiar with this, just a little sneak peek of what's coming, is today, in order to do this at scale, you'd have to write a PowerShell script that you could create groups out of, essentially. What this is going to be tying into our Office 365 groups here soon. So it'll make it much easier to determine departments and business groups and general policy setting around this. I've got fingers crossed that they're going to be announcing this at our Build conference in about 8 days, but we'll see. And the last thing I'll say here is this is a brilliant guide that our Teams engineering group put together for Teams application governance. So if that last topic that I touched on app policies is really near and dear to your heart, I'd highly recommend that you give that a read and leverage that link right there. It's about 5 PDF pages long with some brilliant guidance and feedback from folks who have spent the last 3 years working with our customers directly and helping them understand and respond to the most common questions that we get around security, compliance, governance around applications, et cetera. Okay, so hopefully that helps a little bit on the governance side. Again, we'll cover that in much more detail on that live event, and we're putting together a little bit better guidance as we speak. What I wanted to do is moving forward, just some things that we have to help you stay connected. Look, I recognize that we're looking at doing a separate call for our government cloud organizations. But if anybody is interested and you found it valuable to see some of these use cases today, we decided that we were going to do a monthly Unleashing Teams community call where we actually show more of these scenarios on a regular basis. And so the first ones are coming up in early June. That's actually the link to this page to register. We've got 3 different time zones we're running it in. And the way it's going to work is the first one, we're going to do some of what you saw today and show a couple of new use cases. And then moving forward, we're actually going to invite organizations to come on and co-present with us. And every single 60-minute community call each month will have a specific topic and scenario that we focus on. And we'd like to let organizations like yourself and those who attend pick those topics. So we're going to have forms and feedback forms after each event where we can get opportunities to hear what everybody wants to address. So let me do this. I want to pause for a second. I think we've got about 9 minutes if I'm not mistaken, guys. And I do have a couple of those scenarios that we can go to, but let me pause for a sec. Was there anything that maybe came up in the questions that we'd want to cover or directly address?
I think we addressed most of them. already just did the QA.
Okay, cool. If that's the case, then if you guys are all right with it, what I'll do, because we were talking about this beforehand, is I got one more scenario here that's pretty cool. And this is very similar to what Ernst & Young did, and this organization did it before we had any of these templates available. But imagine if you had, again, one last imagine if, so indulge me here for a sec, but if you had few people who were responsible for supporting many. And in this case, and I feel like this is half of my job here, but in this case, this is Dentsu Aegis Network, and they're a great marketing and media agency. We actually use them at Microsoft, based in the UK, but they've got people all over the planet. And they have 3 people in their IT team that sit under the collaboration product set, and they're responsible for 60,000 people around the globe, leveraging every piece of technology that Dentsu invests in. So I'd imagine some of you may or may not have setups like that. I know it might be a little bit different given the structure of your organizations, but oftentimes it's usually a small department that is responsible for many people leveraging this technology. And what Dentsu was struggling with was, how do you get people to organically adopt this technology rather than us having to hold all these different time zone based trainings and in-person sessions and things that, don't get me wrong, we're not trying to get rid of completely, but how do we get better about doing this digitally? And again, all this happened before this was a couple years ago. We worked with these guys in our engineering group. But they had this really cool combination they built, which I'm going to show you in a second, with SharePoint and Microsoft Azure, which is our cloud service. And then they started to integrate ServiceNow, if anyone's using ServiceNow. And much like the hobby example, what I'll do here is I'll show you exactly what they built and how they ran this process on their support team. Real quick though, for some background and for some transparency. In 2017, what happened is these 3 people built a SharePoint site called WorkSmart. And WorkSmart was supposed to be that single intranet page for people to go to inside of Dentsu to get videos and training content in order to learn how to use the technology that they were given. And then in 2018, Dentsu was admittedly not very happy with their meeting experience of choice. Unfortunately, it was also a piece of technology that we make. And they started testing Microsoft Teams. And they loved the experience. And this was just in the IT group, about 5,000 people. And before you know it, it started catching on because they asked their executives to start setting their executive meetings in Microsoft Teams in 2018. And so the executives started doing it. They never announced that they were going to be rolling out Teams. They just wanted to start testing it. And before they knew it, over the course of 2 months, all 5,000 people in and around the IT department who had access to Teams, if they wanted to download it, were using it regularly, daily. And they were so blown away by this organic adoption that Dom, their CEO, or CIO, excuse me, was so excited. He said, all right, let's figure out, can we actually drive organic adoption broadly across our whole organization? Let's see if we can do it. Let's put our heads together and talk to Microsoft and see if we can do it. And let's start with 30,000 people, half of our company, in the English speaking areas. And I want to show you what they came up with and sort of the evolution of their journey, because all it was doing was leveraging what they already had. And you've seen sort of examples of this throughout the day, but just bringing it to life here. And I'll show you the video, but the way their support desk was working in version 1.0 is that new user would be assigned technology, so whether or not Microsoft built it. And if they had a question, they'd go to one of those 3 people in the IT collaboration team, and they'd pull information from their brain, the internet, their peers, or an internal knowledge base or internal resource or knowledge base, which is more often than not an intranet site. And then they give that person back an answer, right? Kind of support 101, not very efficient, but unfortunately that's how they were doing it. And then in 2017, as I mentioned, is what they did is they said, all right, let's take all this information and knowledge that we have, and let's bring it together and create this SharePoint site called WorkSmart. And now when users reach out to us, what we're going to do is we're going to point them to this page to get their answers. So it was still a little bit reactive, but it was better. That was 2.0. And then when they saw the success of the Teams meeting experience and they wanted to see if they could drive true organic adoption at scale without having to run a bunch of different meetings, what happened was they said, all right, let's talk to Microsoft. And what they came up with is the team leveraging this WorkSmart intranet page that we talked about earlier. They wanted to connect it into a Teams bot. And we have a bot service, it's a template called Azure Q&A Maker. So that Azure Q&A Maker is actually the foundation of FAQ bot that I showed you just a bit ago. And so what they did is they said, all right, let's go ahead and build this bot and let's connect it into the WorkSmart page and leverage that resource. So just like we did with Appy, same concept. But instead of waiting for the users to reach out to us, what we're going to do is we're going to send them an email communication, and we're going to say everybody has access to Microsoft Teams today. And they didn't do that overnight, of course. They let people know it was coming. And they said, if you've got a question, much like EY did, your single point of contact is the Teams bot. Sorry. And what will happen is if the Teams bot can't answer your question, it again will reroute. I took off the pen. It'll reroute a question to your experts so they can get you an answer. And then what happened is now, once Dentsu started doing that, they added ServiceNow in as that middle layer to automatically create a ServiceNow ticket once this happened. And what was so incredible with Dentsu in this experience is they sent one email communication out. So this communication right here, and I'll show you back to this quote that they sent here. That one communication, they had 30,000 people over the course of 4 months leveraging Teams by doing 0 formal training. Now, I'm not going to pretend that everybody here can do that in their organization. I'm not sure Microsoft would be that successful if we did that either, to be honest. They've got a fairly younger organization. But again, leveraging the technology and delivering something innovative that really just modernized the investments they had made. It was such an amazing example of what was possible. And again, seeing that evolution of the journey there. So I hope that helps as another example there of what's possible. And again, Dentsu is probably frustrated today because we built FAQ Plus bot and company communicator based off of their use case, because they were actually working with our engineering team to make that possible. So it would have been much easier for them to get started if we had all of those templates and services in place when they did. So look, that's all for me. I really hope this was helpful. Again, I'm going to share out some of these links, but we'd love to see all of you on one of these community calls. I'm looking forward to hopefully engaging with everybody here again soon. Guys, anything else there?
Nope, we're all clear.
Yeah, Jace, let me go ahead and share back the slide deck, the original slide deck. I have a little bit of an update.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, that should be presenting now. There we go. So let me go up one slide. Okay, so in the span of the time during this meeting, I did receive the link for the Teams IT training. The classes themselves are not posted yet on the site, but the site is there. So here is the site to go for the Teams IT training. Again, this is just for agency IT staff, please. And we will be posting, the classes will be posted to that site in the next coming days. And so probably by Monday, all of those classes will be posted there for you to sign up. So thanks for your patience on that. Also, coming up next, we did get some really great feedback regarding the captioning and some of the accessibility features. Appreciate that, Randy, you posting those into the meetings. And I have quite a bit of hearing loss. I wear hearing aids, so I use captioning quite a bit. So I definitely, and I have a special needs son, so I'm definitely big on accessibility. And we are going to be highlighting accessibility that is built into Office 365 and Teams, and really want to share what is available there. We take this very, very seriously, as you'll see in that session. And so look forward to sharing a lot about what we have. Also, in tandem with what Jace had announced about the webinar series that he's going to have, we are also going to have a series of workshops on leveraging Power Apps, Power Automate, bots, and we're going to have in the next few months, probably in the next 2 months, a virtual hackathon for agency teams to develop solutions. And the goal behind this is just to make it really fun. And we're going to have the solutions will be judged by agency peers. And as much as I would love to give you a trip to Paris or some other big prize at the end, we're not legally allowed to do that. So you get major bragging rights. So not sure if that's worth anything, but if you're kind of a geek at heart like me, then bragging rights are pretty good. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for our call. We are 1 minute over. I just want to go back to the registration page. If you did not get a chance to sign in and provide feedback, we'd welcome that. If there are other topics that you would like to see in the future, please list those as well. And with that, I want to thank Jace for the fantastic content that he shared with us. I want to thank Grant and Justin for helping to moderate and answer all of the questions that were coming in. And I really want to thank all of you in our community for being such active participants in our community, helping us to drive the success of teams across our agencies in Texas. And just keep using Teams, keep going deeper, attend the training. We look forward to sharing more with all of you. And thank you again for being a Microsoft customer and being a member of our community. Have a great weekend. Signing off. Thank you.